I didn't always consider Pet Sounds a masterpiece. It took years, as a matter of fact, decades, for me to emotionally connect with the record. Um, and recently, in intensive listening sessions for this DSS One-Step, I finally came to the realization that it is, in fact, a creative masterpiece. I document that journey in an article I did for Audiophilia, so I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. But today we're going to take a look at the new DSS One-Step of the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. I'm going to talk about some of the other versions I heard, and we're going to talk about the unique lineage of this record. Let's take a look at the One-Step first. So, as usual, these beautiful DSS boxes have the DSS logo highlighted in spot gloss. You can see it reflect when you catch it in the right light. It's quite a nice effect. Here, this is like a satin matte finish, and it looks like they had the original elements for it. It really, really looks beautiful. And this is a kind of a cover that I used to think was really corny looking, but it's become classic over the years. Now I love it. I love, the period type style, and everything about it is just really cool. And you can tell that they really searched for the right elements and made sure this looked as good as it possibly could. And it looks better than anything I saw on these other pressings. The song titles are the only thing on the back cover, except your limited edition number, which is, I think there's 7,500 of these. Inside, you have a beautiful satin finish gatefold with a wide spine. And now you're seeing this in close-up, and it's like, wow, ooh, it looks so clear. Slightly soft, but not out of focus, just kind of perfect in a way. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that they retained the detail of this border. Why that's important? It's important to us collectors and people that appreciate little details. I like that it still says File Under the Beach Boys and the mono catalog number. And this border is really recreating what happened when they did the original tip-on jackets. So the white back part was pasted on the cardboard first, and it came over the sides like that. And then the smaller slick for the cover left a white border. So that's why this is so cool. That's why they retained it. And it's attention to details like that that makes this a very special release. But when you get inside, that's when things get really interesting. I'm sorry for the reflection here. I'm going to do some of this in close-up. So you see on the left over here, you see a different version of Pet Sounds with a brown border. We'll talk about this in a moment. You also see two tape boxes that say Artisan on them. And this is where this gets interesting, because instead of being derived from the original master tape, this takes a totally different approach. Over the years, there was a version of Pet Sounds that garnered a cult reputation. If you went in forums and fan groups, you heard about it. It's called Carl and the Passions. Carl and the Passions was a twofer that came out in 1972. I have a copy of it here. And you might have passed it by if you ever saw it, because it's pretty unremarkable looking. You wouldn't even know it was by the Beach Boys unless you had the hype sticker on here. This is a promo copy. I don't know if the hype sticker actually appeared on these when they came out, but I think they did. It's called So Tough. So a new Beach Boys record, and if you turn it over, you're like, why is Pet Sounds there? Well, this is the thing about this particular lineage. in 1972, Brian Wilson, of course, wanted to bring back his pet project, his masterpiece, Pet Sounds, in the way he thought was appropriate. This is his thinking at the time, that he wanted it remastered in a different way. And he had Artisan do the mastering. And that's what was used to create this legendary version of Pet Sounds. And it does sound different. It reflects Brian's thinking at the time. I had never heard this until recently. And now I see the direct lineage from here to the definitive sound series One-Step. Because what happened is Tom Beery decided he wanted to reissue this version of Pet Sounds, not one from the original master tape. There's plenty of those around and many are very good. He wanted to do something special for this and get this legendary tape transferred to lathe with minimal alteration. As a matter of fact, I think there's no alteration because the EQ is already built into this tape. That's the premise for this project, that this tape is how Brian Wilson intended you to hear Pet Sounds, and that the definitive sound series release is the ultimate realization of what is on this record. To tie this in even more with this lineage, they used the Brother Records label. So by this point, actually for several years prior to 72, they had their own label, Brother Records. So the label, the tape boxes, all this points to a different lineage for Pet Sounds, which I think is really interesting. And let me not put this together right now. And just hold that thought for a moment, because I'm going to discuss some of the earlier pressings as well. I got to hear an original 1966. And of course, this is from the other lineage, the original master tape, not the Artisan tape. And it set the template for the sound that extends throughout the other two versions I'm going to talk about, which are the DCC, mastered by Steve Hoffman, and the Analogue Productions, mastered by Kevin Gray. What you notice right away, and what I noticed right away after listening to the test pressing for the DSS One-Step, is this has what some would say a little bit overblown bass sound. Now, is it pretty? Yes, it is. It sounds great. I like the weight of it. And honestly, I thought this was going to be a marginal kind of listen. Capitol in 1966 wasn't producing great discs consistently, not like they were in the 50s. So I didn't know what to expect. The record has seen a little wear. I had two original pressings to listen to. And what I think characterizes the original tape lineage is warmth, bass, and kind of a vintage sound. It's a little bit dreamy in a way. Clarity is somewhat lacking. It's not a perfect pressing by any means. Still, the magic is there. And there were a couple of moments on here that I really loved and I got excited about. And it happened throughout all of these pressings, but I'll describe those to you when I describe the Hoffman cut. But if you find a clean rainbow label version of Pet Sounds in mono from 1966, and it's not expensive, and what I mean by that is not over $40, it's definitely worth the picking up, because honestly, there are many paths into Pet Sounds, and each one of them has validity. This original, I think, is very valid. Some may say it sounds a little too bass heavy, but I liked it. I really did like it. And this came into more focus, literally and figuratively, as I listened to the DCC. Now, the DCC is mastered by Steve Hoffman. I've talked about Steve before in the channel. I have an affinity for Steve Hoffman's mastering style. He has a way of making any record sound beautiful, pretty sometimes. And that's the case here too. It retains the bass heaviness, although I think it reins it back just a little bit. But what's really interesting about this version is how the vocals come across. On the earlier original pressing, at least the ones I had, it's a bit grainy, it's a bit diffuse, it's not clear cut and fine. And on Hoffman's cut, those vocals are just like layered on top of each other so smoothly, so beautifully, that it instantly catches your ear and draws you in. Another thing on this pressing that I noticed is it has a dimension to it that I really liked as well. I believe Steve uses tube mastering equipment that may have something to do with it, but whatever the reason, it draws you in. And that's another thing I like about this is even though it's a mono recording, it's very dimensional. In parts. There are a couple parts that feel flat on any pressing, but there are little touches all throughout the record that remind you that it has depth and layering. And it feels sometimes almost like a stereo recording in some cuts. There's beautiful things happening on this. There's another thing that I imagined was happening. I don't know if it's something that he did or if it's just my impression, but on the Carl and the Passions original, there's a couple points where there's a song, I'm trying to figure out which one it is. Waiting for the Day, I think it is. It gets aggressive, no question about it. There's a couple of times when I was listening at quite a loud level and I ran to turn it down because it was just shouting at me. Interestingly, when I heard the same cut on here, it feels like it was pulled back a bit. So it doesn't annoy you and grab you like, shouting at you. And I noticed this throughout Steve's record that it flowed in a way that never drew attention to itself. It kind of bypassed those moments that are a little bit, and made the record sound lush, immersive, and involving all the way through. So I really liked the DCC pressing. It's not one that I own. I wouldn't mind acquiring it. There's no shame in having multiple pressings of pet sounds. And we'll get to that when I talk about the DSS One-Step too. The next one is the one that I own, and that is Analogue Productions 33 Mono. It's beautifully produced. I mean, it really, it looks so gorgeous. It has the glossy cover, of course, I like that. But beyond that, it's a heavy 200-gram pressing, original capital label, and the mastering is respectful to the original and is really beautiful. It doesn't quite have the same feel as the Hoffman cut, not surprisingly. They're two different mastering engineers. Kevin Gray did this in a way that I feel honors the original. It seems to have nudged the bass a little bit further, but you know what? I think a lot of people associate that bass with this record. And sometimes it gets a little uncontrolled, a little flabby sounding. And that's where the Definitive Sound Series One-Step is going to come in. But overall, I'm very, very happy with this. They did several versions of Pet Sounds, a mono and a stereo, both in 33 and 45. Now, when I was preparing for this review, I did some streaming, and of course I realized the streaming is going to be in stereo. So it was a stereo mix that was done years later. And I heard things that I want to hear on the record, the stereo record. So I ordered the 45. I don't have it here for this discussion, and it's not relevant to this discussion, only in that there is another path to pet sounds besides the original tape lineage and the Artisan tape lineage. There is the remix in stereo. And some people will prefer the stereo, I'm sure. I can't wait to hear it. All this brings us to Carl and the Passions and the One-Step. So, where the One-Step is positioned is, as I said, the way that Brian Wilson wanted you to hear it. And apparently, Brian Wilson felt also that the bass was overblown on previous cuts. So the Artisan tape pulls it back a little bit. And in technical terms, it sounds more correct. So it doesn't bloom out and get fuzzy and get a little bit overblown. It keeps it tight, and it keeps it there. It's weighty enough to anchor the songs. And it's a different kind of presentation for pet sounds. There also is an increased level of clarity and nuance and low-level detail coming through. That, in part, is due not only to the tape source, but to the processing of this record, the One-Step process, and probably even more so, the VR 900 vinyl, D2 vinyl. This vinyl compound really allows things to come out that are somewhat obscured on lesser pressings. Certainly on the original, there are things that are kind of in a halo, a fuzz. And here it's ultra clear and precise and beautiful. It's a different approach. I think people that love pet sounds are going to want to hear the finest edition of this tape lineage. And really, it is the definitive version of Carl and the Passions. I had a promo copy of Carl and the Passions, white label promo. I don't think there's any real reason to go searching for one. Pressing quality varies, and for some reason, even with a direct transfer to lathe, this sounds worlds better than the Carl and the Passions. Does it sound like the original tape lineage? No. And that's why you need all three. You need one of the copies of the original tape lineage, no question about it. I think most people would like to hear the Carl and the Passions lineage, and the Definitive Sound series release celebrates that in the most beautiful way. Then there's the stereo version as well, which, after listening to so much of Pet Sounds over the last 3 months, I fell in love with the record, and I couldn't say that before. I fell in love with every moment of it. I want to mention a couple of moments that just blew my mind. One is in Sloop John B. Sloop John B is a record I had when I was a kid, a 45. I remember the sing-along, I want to go home, I want to go home. That's all I thought about it at the time. I didn't really examine it like I do today, nor did I hear it on a high-end system. Hearing it on this DSS One-Step, it was glittering, it was panoramic, the voices were just like soaring, and then at the climax of the song, the music drops out, and you just hear those voices. And it's one of those goosebump moments. It just sounds like amazing. There's another famous moment on the record, and that is God Only Knows. God Only Knows is a fabulous song, of course. But none can hold a candle to the Beach Boys version, and a lot have tried to do their own version. What makes the Beach Boys version magical is the climax. At the end, the music's building up to a climax, the drum hits, and you're hearing all the Beach Boys voices in a round of repetition, saying, God only knows what I'd be without you. and it's raising up and up and up, and you're just like, wow. That's the magic of the Beach Boys, and it's on all of the pressings, but it's really, really fun on the Definitive Sound Series release as well. A couple of other surprises that I noticed are the instrumentals. Let's Go Away for a While. Sophisticated, beautiful, some of the best sound on the album, and it doesn't have any Beach Boys vocals on it. Brian Wilson created a beautiful instrumental there. Also, the title track, Pet Sounds, is an instrumental, and it evokes Exotica, which you guys know I like. Wow. Big dimensional sound. Sounds like stereo at times, with a real feel for the Exotica genre. And it's really beautiful. Both of those cuts sound amazing on the DSS One-Step as well. There's other moments, of course, throughout this record that will win your heart. It does take time. It does take time to fully appreciate Pet Sounds. It's not a record that wins you over immediately, at least in my opinion. It took me decades, almost 50 years. So be patient, give it time. Eventually, the light bulb is going to go on, and it's going to reveal itself to you as the masterpiece that it is. Those are my thoughts on all these versions of Pet Sounds. Let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, I'm Scott from The Pressing Matters. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.